Hi Fam Bam! Welcome back to the Simplified series. Today we are going to talk about the pros and cons of floor sleeping. So we have been floor sleeping on and off for a while now, since before my first kid, so that is like 8 years. And the reason that we began floor sleeping is because we moved and traveled a lot, and the most expensive and most challenging thing to move around or to have to repurchase again was a bed. On and off, not because it was necessarily our choice, but based on things like after pregnancy, just the ease of getting in and out from nursing, or being in situations where we lived kind of semi-outdoors or like in not a well insulated house, dealing with bugs that you don't want to be on the floor with, or not being able to move furniture because we're not in our own home, etc., have led us to come off the floor. But we typically just come right back to the floor any opportunity that we get. So you guys have seen some of my videos. If you haven't, I'll stick them down in the link below on why we floor sleep, how we floor sleep, and a doctor's perspective on floor sleeping. And today we're just going to talk about the pros and cons of that I've discovered over the last 8 years of floor sleeping. So I'm going to start with the pros because I'm a pro floor sleeper. And the first pro really is you save a lot of money. Like I said, we first started this just because I was curious if there was any practicality in it, simply because it was a pain in the butt to feel like you had to buy this whole bed, and it always costed you at least $500 or more for the setup. And now how are we going to move this bed if we're leaving? Floor sleeping has indeed saved us a lot of money. Even if you don't sleep directly on the floor, or just with like a little suka mat or a little, what are those Japanese tatami mats, just taking a mattress and 86ing the box spring and the bed frame all together and just sticking the mattress on the floor is a great way to just save money. And technically you're sleeping on the floor, you're not raised up off of it. I don't think it gives you the same floor sleeping benefits for those who can actually benefit from them, but you're still saving that money. So number 2 on my list for pros is, for me, and I'm speaking just for myself, it has been more comfortable and actually healthier for my spine. After getting in a terrible car accident back in 2005, I started developing a forward bend in my spine, and actually the vertebrae here in like my neck, I think these are still cervical, started to pinch together in the front. And it wasn't until I got back on the floor and had a straight spine in that sleeping position that it was sort of able to realign and heal again. Because I am relatively narrow in my body shape and in my bones, they are bony, but sleeping on my back or like on my front side, I'm a little more flat, unlike some curvaceous women or people who have less of like just a stick straight figure. I find it more comfortable, but I do realize that for some people, it's uncomfortable, and I will go over that in the cons of pro sleeping. So ultimately, I always say get checked by a medical professional. Whether or not you want to argue a chiropractor is a doctor or a medical professional, at least get checked by somebody that you like, know, and trust, that also specializes in the alignment of the body. So maybe a physical therapist. Like currently we work with a physical therapist. I know some chiropractors who are medicinal sports doctors that focus solely on trigger release therapy and actually aligning the spine without actually cracking bones and pulling at joints and stuff. So not everybody is equal and the same just because they carry the same title. So just get checked by somebody that you know, like, and trust and believe is credible enough to understand the alignment and the health of your spine and your body. Number 3, the pro of floor sleeping has been learned flexibility in sleeping scenarios. What I mean by this is, have you ever slept in your bed, love your bed, sleep in your bed, but the minute you go into a different bed, you just get the worst sleep of your life? So whether you're visiting your parents' house that live far away, or you're going to a hotel room, or you're staying the night at a friend's house, or you're camping, you can't seem to sleep well unless you're sleeping in your very own bed. My theory is that this is because you sort of get pampered by this level of comfort or expectation to feel a certain way. And in another respect, that if your bed does not align your spine in a healthy manner, your spine learns to curve with that bed or that sleeping arrangement. And when that changes and it slightly changes the curve of your spine, it starts to become very uncomfortable. For some reason, ever since we started sleeping on the floor, sleeping in other spaces, like in the car, on the other floor, in a different bed, on a sofa, has just become really easy. Like, we get a good night's sleep no matter where it is we sleep, and that has all changed ever since we began sleeping on the floor. So that's a major positive in my opinion, because I would like to have a good night's rest no matter where I'm sleeping and no matter what. So floor sleeping has done that for us. Number 4 positive attribute of floor sleeping is it's space saving. Now, we currently, and I will tell you more about this in my floor sleeping update video next week, but we currently no longer fold up or roll up the bed. If you do it Japanese style, like with a tatami mat, or you could, even given our situation, we could technically roll up that bed and put it away and have all this space in our room, and it's amazing. The reason we don't do it is because we don't need the extra space currently, and we'd rather save the time. But it doesn't take much more. It maybe takes 10 or 15 minutes extra in your day to roll it all up and roll it back out again. And to have that space is awesome. And sometimes we do it on special occasions, like if we want that space to take photos in for work, or if we just want to stick the room, have an empty room for the kids to play in, then our room is like the best room for that, and we just roll it up and shove it off in the corner and they have that extra space. So I really love that. Plus, I really don't like hitting my toes and ankles around the corners of my bed, or like hitting my shins against the corners of the bed. I probably should just stop being so clumsy, but I like not having to deal with that scenario anymore. Number 5, it's really easy to move. No matter where we go, we can put everything in our car, fit it in our car, and go. If we had actual beds, we would have to rent something like a truck or a U-Haul to move. And I like keeping moving simple because we like to move, travel, and we like to just move around and be flexible. And that's just us. For some people, they like to be in their own home, and they're going to be in that home for decades. And if that's you, then maybe getting an actual frame or creating a frame with the similar floor sleeping scenario, which is something I would totally do. And I'm supposed to talk about this next year, but it's not like there's a right or wrong way to do this. It's just something that has developed for us, and this is a way we do it, but there are many different ways to still get the same value and make it comfortable and accommodating for you personally, your preferences, and your lifestyle. For some people, they don't want to floor sleep, but you can get, like, say, a futon or a bed couch. So every day you put that bed away and then make it into a couch, and you still get that same space saving scenario. You still get that same save money scenario because you're not buying a bed and a couch. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can go about this. These are just the ways that we have and the reasons that we found it a positive, value-adding thing to do in our lives. Now moving into the cons, or the downsides of floor sleeping, is dirt. You're on the floor, so we have talked about recently in like my cleaning habits how important it is to keep the floors very clean, especially when your bed is directly on the floor. I'm a little particular, and I don't like the kids to just run over the bed like it is the floor. Even though it's on the floor, it's really easy to just like want to walk on it and walk off and just pretend that it's not an actual bed. I don't think any of us would feel comfortable with just somebody just like stepping on our bed and walking across it. So just because it's on the floor, the same rule applies in this house. Like, don't walk on the bed, that's gross. One of the ways around this is to raise it off the floor or create a clean space around it, like a rug underneath the bed that signifies like, hey, this is like the private space that you kind of still have to walk around. The number 2 thing on my list that's a downside is bugs. If you can't treat for it or avoid it, then don't sleep on the floor. And this is probably the major reason, especially in Hawaii, that we have had to move off the floor, is being in a space that's not insulated or sealed. And just so you know, like, giant geckos and centipedes is not something that I want to mess with. It's probably not like a good risk to even take. Some people would take it. I don't feel like doing that. So in those cases, I would either raise my bed off the floor and create a platform to maintain the same floor sleeping feel. Otherwise, I just get on a bed, and most of these scenarios for us have been in rented houses, so it's still not my bed. It's still not something I have to worry about taking with me or packing to travel. The next thing is that it could be uncomfortable. We talked about it earlier. If you are more curvaceous or if you're not as flat, I don't know how else to explain. My body type is just like flat all around. It's like straight lines all around. And maybe you're too bony, or you have, bigger joints that stick out. This might be really uncomfortable. We have incorporated 3-inch memory foam mattress pad, and I use a lot of pillows to avoid a lot of the discomforts of maybe the pointy bits getting on the ground. And it works for me. You can play around with it, but at the end of the day, if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't mean floor sleeping is for you. You just might have to find a different way to go about it. Number 4 downside is judgment. Like, some people think it's weird. I see it a lot in the comments. People are saying that this is weird. We might as well go back to caveman days. Not all progression is good. There's an equal and opposite, like good and bad side to everything. Everything. And it all depends on you and your circumstance. At the end of the day, if somebody's going to judge you for what you do that adds a value in your life, why care? That person's judgment is meaningless anyways. Unless their intention is to help serve you and add value in your life, their judgment or their thoughts of what they think of how you go about doing things, especially when those things don't affect them in their lives, it doesn't decrease value, it doesn't hurt anybody, is a silly thing to even care about. So even though it's a downside that people could judge, maybe the inconvenience is if your family or your friends are giving you a hard time about it, you might have to seriously rethink if these people or these relationships are healthy or toxic to have around. And sometimes that's not really a fun thing to address, but I guess it's a little downside that I wanted to throw in there because I don't want to totally negate the fact that that could happen in this scenario. Number 5 is that beds can actually become uncomfortable. And for us, when we stay in like a hotel for longer than 4 or 5 days, they start to become really, really uncomfortable. And then we find ourselves like moving all the sheets on the floor and making a floor bed and using the comforter as like the little mattress pad or the space in between us and the floor. And that's fine. I mean, we're okay with it. Some people think that's totally gross. Fine. Dirt and germs exist everywhere, and we, obviously shower every single day, but it is not fun sometimes to feel like you're in a nice hotel, you just want to enjoy it and like enjoy the sheets and enjoy sinking in, and then like 3 nights into it, you're like, ugh, this sucks. It's not like it's so uncomfortable that you can't get a good night's sleep. Kind of like the scenario that we talked about in the pros, that when you leave your bed and it starts to become uncomfortable, but it's just almost like you just prefer to be back on the floor again, and it just is not like, it's just kind of like a not comfortable feeling. Like you could still deal with it, but like you're just so grateful to be back on the floor again and have your spine straight. And that is probably one of the biggest downsides I've had in sleeping on the floor. It's like, why get a nice hotel room if you don't appreciate the nice bed anyways? So anyways, that is my pros and cons list for floor sleeping. At the end of the day, there's no right or wrong way to do this. This is something that we shared because it added value to us. It was a minimalist approach to something that was more traditional in our society or culture that was interesting, but did add a lot of value to us that we're sharing with you. So ultimately, if you try floor sleeping and love it, great. If you try it and hate it, then that's great too. You just got to find what works for you. Maybe floor sleeping doesn't work. Maybe you just put the mattress on the floor. Maybe you create a high-rise platform that gives you that same firm effect. Whatever works for you, just giving it a try and keeping these pros and cons in mind might help you out and help you find the actual situation that works best for you. And if you do find something that works for you, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear how your setup is and why it adds value to you and why you decided to change. I want to thank you guys so much for being here. Give this video a thumbs up if you like these things. And again, thank you so much for these requests. They're a lot of fun. Remember to be good, be great. Most of all, be grateful. Go out there, shine your light, and add value to yourself so you can add value to others. Ciao for now.